is Christopher Hensley. I'm 27 years old, originally from Miami, Florida. My testimony begins, I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in church. I was raised in the church from, I guess, 2 or 3 years old, presenting at the church until about 16 or 17 when I decided to walk away from the church and the ways that I was raised. I began experimenting with cigarettes and alcohol, and then led on to further things as marijuana and harder drugs at this point. Later on, I started going into dealing in drugs and just living a lifestyle of the streets. I didn't want nothing to do with God. I didn't want nothing to do with my home and my family. And then just pursued just drug dealing and getting into associating myself with gangs and violence and just partying, and just had no direction anymore. I lived this way for about 10 years of my life. Thank God for praying mothers. I see many mothers in the room here with your children, you know, and I just encourage you to keep praying, because I'm an answer to prayer. My life had no direction. I was out of control. My charges, my arrest charges were piling up. I've been in multiple accidents. I could have lost my life. I've been in shootouts. I could have lost my life. I dealt out with men that you hear about only on TV and movies about, you know, these big drug dealers and these big men that are just violent, and it was just horrible. So, you know, I look back at it now, and God spared my life in so many ways I don't even realize it. But living this lifestyle of over 10 years, earlier on this year, I was arrested for a DUI. I was facing 2 more earlier from last year. But I was arrested and I was put in a jail cell. I was put in a 24-hour lockdown, and I was by myself in this jail cell. I didn't share with anybody else. And it was there in that jail cell where I dropped down to my knees and I cried out to God, and I repented to God, and I asked Him, you know, to save me not for what I've done, you know, these past couple times, these DUIs, not to save me for this situation, but just to save my life in general, you know, because I look back and see where I was raised, and I know and I felt God before. I've had Him live in my life. I've had Him in my heart. I've always had the whole time, but I've lived for Him before, so I wanted that again. So I cried out and repented to Him, and cried a big puddle of tears on that jail cell floor. And I was expecting to do a lot of time at that point. I wasn't expecting to be bonded out. I was already on double bond at that time. But God works His way, miracles. I think it was a couple days, 5-6 days later, I was out of that jail cell. And my mother had just came in town. So I was speaking to my mother, and I was telling her, you know, what I rededicated my life to God in that jail cell. But I didn't want it to come back out, and I just didn't want to do the same things anymore. I didn't want to, you know, say that I'm going to go to church and say I'm going to spend time in the Word daily and say I'm going to live for Christ and I'm a minister, but it doesn't happen like that. So I wanted help. So I told her to see if maybe she can get a hold of Pastor Wendell Loving Hands and see if there's a spot available, so I can just get away, so I can go ahead and get focused again, so I can go ahead and you know, get mentored again, and get discipled again, and get my life structured again. And that's exactly what I did, and I don't regret the steps that I took to get here. You know, I regret my mistakes that I did, but I don't regret being here, is what I should say. But I want to thank you for letting us share. I want to leave you with a scripture verse. Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus. Amen.